We want to talk about the situation in Cork. Some fairly radical proposals to try and reanimate the championship season at club level were put to Cork County Board last night, and there was a vote. Kevin O'Donovan is the Cork County Board CEO/Secretary. Kevin, good morning to you. How are you doing?
Morning, Ger. How are you?
Yeah, good. Listen, you obviously sparked a national debate. Some people very much in favour with the proposal that a couple of championship games might be played without inter-county players. A bunch of other people obviously on the other side of that debate. Ultimately, it hasn't come to pass in the vote last night. But before we talk about what the outcome was, what's your take on how that conversation went? I'm sure you were very interested in how it was evolving across the last 10 days or so.
Yeah, we were thrilled with the process, to be honest, because we knew it was a game changer when we put it out there as an option. And remember, it was one of a range of options, so clubs could select from that menu if they wished. We were delighted it started that debate, because our agenda from the very start of this process was to raise the profile of the club game and do whatever we could to give regular, meaningful games to club players across a reasonable period of time. Hopefully the summer, that's off the table for the moment, I'm afraid. But we live in an imperfect world, so we knew that every option we put out there had holes in it, and every option we put out there had obviously very positive aspects as well. But we were delighted. I think the debate was very informed at times, and then I think there was a degree of hysteria at times as well, where people maybe didn't read the detail of it, and we were accused of all sorts of conspiracies, but that was funny at times too.
Yeah, I mean, was the conspiracy the notion that you just wanted to get people talking about it, or was because if it had been voted on last night, would you have been pretty happy about that? Because it would have meant a bunch of meaningful games during the summer.
Yeah, I think, and there would have been issues with implementation, would have been difficult, but we wanted to give the clubs their say, so there was issues raised. Obviously, we'd need a deviation from rule in relation to changing points, the awarding of points and so on in terms of the official guide, but we were going to pursue all of those aspects. But the debate was almost worth it, because we now have a consideration of playing games in the summer period, and all parties agreed on that. Even people who were totally opposed to our proposal option C did see merit in summer games. So I think maybe it's back on the agenda now that the club player isn't sidelined for so long, and there was universal support for that in Cork. Definitely not support for playing without county players, but yeah, support for having another look at the summer months.
So the option that was successful when it was put to the delegates was games in April and then games in August. It still means that the club player will be without championship matches in May, June and July, and if Cork reach All-Ireland finals, probably for the bulk of August as well. Is that right?
Yeah, and the gap is not satisfactory, and clubs have to have 2 pre-seasons, having trained for 1 game in April, take a break and then come back in another pre-season ahead of August. But we put that in the table. We also put another one to just start the championship in August. That was absolutely routed at the ballot box. It got 15%. And then we said, let's throw in a game changer. Let's throw in the summer games, 1 or 2 games out of a group of 6 for half points. So there was a lot of talk about, taking the county player away from his club and, damaging the club game. And that was a bit extreme, to be honest. The county player would be playing 3 games with his club in the group format, more than he's currently playing in Cork at the moment. In Cork, he currently plays a first round and a back door. So he was actually going to spend more time with his club next year. I think that got lost in the debate along the way. But another aspect I would like to add, though, is Cork did make radical change last night. Cork brought relegation back into their championships, having removed it 3 years ago. We've dramatically reduced the numbers in all our grades from 19, 16 and 26 down to 4 12s and 5 12s for a short period of time. And we changed to a group format. Now, group formats in Cork would be a completely radical idea, beyond the pale a few months ago.
Yeah.
And now it's in place. So while this massive debate raged about C, there was a lot of work done in terms of reforming our championship, so we're absolutely delighted.
Yeah, that's great. Was part of your strategy to make sure that there was a big debate about something, and then, okay, well, there's this other menu going on over here which we can slowly get into people's minds and go, look, this is really good, this is very beneficial for us.
Yeah, and maybe I wouldn't paint it as sinister as that, but there was an aspect that when we did the consultation process, which was prolonged, we found consensus on that. People wanted competitiveness returning to the county championship. People wanted regular, meaningful games with a calendar. We found consensus there. We did not find consensus, as the vote reflects, on when are we going to play? And like, that's the real conundrum, because when you're going to play, it then affects your format. Because obviously you can't have a 16 format in a dual county starting in August. So we had to cut our cloth and that and present options and go to the people again. But yeah, listen, a whole lot of areas have come up. County players expressing their desire to play with their clubs. It's been a while since you heard that one, and that one came back loud and clear. So perhaps we'll be considering that one again, about when we can get county players to play for their clubs, because they certainly expressed that wish throughout the debate.
Is it possible for the club-only month of April to actually work to its full potential, Kevin? Because it seems that across the board there's different structures in each county.
Yeah.
So it's ultimately not going to work on an overall level, is it?
Yeah, I sit in the National Fixtures Analysis Committee, and we found that first of all, you've 32 different programmes in 32 different counties, and everyone argues for standardisation. When you look at the detail, it's almost impossible. They all need to, create their own system. And then when you hammer that back into a universal county system, it's not difficult, or it's not easy to match them up. I suppose April presents a difficulty for us, and the Cork Hurlers are playing on the 12th of May, which makes the last week of April very difficult for us, because we want to give reasonable time before the Munster Hurling Championship, given that they're playing on 2 consecutive weekends, at home to Tipperary and away to Limerick. So that takes the last weekend of April away from us. We also have 2 codes, so if we're going to play around in April, we need 2 weekends, one for hurling, one for football. But given our number of games, we've 73 first-round games just in that month of April, just at the top grades. We actually need 2 weekends for hurling and 2 weekends for football. So then April gets seriously tight. And then the Cork hurlers playing up until late March, we're pretty well hemmed in, which is why there was considerable support, despite what anyone says, for option C. It got almost 25% of the vote. It got over 50% of clubs put down either first choice or second choice for option C. So while option A won by a landslide, 61.5%, option C was not beyond the pale for a lot of people. So while it was painted in some areas of the media as being radical, as undermining these as the J, as ushering a rugby era, as us trying to, copper fasten the inter-county programme, not quite the story on the ground.
Well, let's talk about that. Did consider it an option. They didn't vote for it, but it was considered. Yeah, but 25% for first time out, we know generally how these things work. It's like an idea is completely ridiculous, beyond the pale, as you would say. People think about it for a while, and then 3 years later that 25% becomes something that goes, we need to do this. So the conversation has begun, and that in and of itself is something that you guys, I think, should be applauded for. I wasn't one of those people who were thinking that this is ridiculous, but I have read all that stuff, and I have read people saying that this is the ring fencing of the elite, and that divorce of the county player from the club. Talk to us a little bit about what you actually thought when you read that, and why that for you was never the case.
First of all, until I started this job 3 months ago, I have never stood in an inter-county dressing room in my life. I'm from a junior club in West Cork. Okay, so when I'm painted as someone who's trying to protect the inter-county game, it just amuses me, to be honest. Another aspect was there was Croke Park conspiracies abounding, that Croke Park were trying to get this in Cork to get it to spread like a virus countrywide. I would say the opposite was the case. I would say that, people in those positions would hope that this wouldn't come in, because it would have maybe started what some people would perceive as a rot that would spread. But our agenda was to give club players a programme of games across the summer. We considered different options, different ways of doing that. We put it to the club. So I was actually neutral in all proposals, and I'd be happy to implement them all. I think they're all a massive improvement on what we're doing at the moment. But people deserved an option. It's as simple as that. And we're not planning on vote building either. It would be very disingenuous now to take a vote where 61.5% voted for option A, and to say that, we're just preempting another vote where we'll get it through the next time, like a reholding of a Nice referendum. Absolutely not true. The clubs have spoken loud and clear. They want their county players for a championship. Anything I implement will be along those lines. But my only point is to paint us as being, beyond the pale, as kowtowing to inter-county management. I can guarantee you the opposite would be the case.
Yeah, that argument didn't seem to make that much sense to me, when actually what you're doing is you're making all of the club players play at the height of summer, which is everybody's stated ambition. ultimately is to try and boost the club game. And so if there's a couple of games where some of your inter-county players are missing, but there's still 4 opportunities or 3 opportunities for them to make up points at twice the rate for the games that they're missing, and everybody's going to be missing their inter-county players at the same time, like, definitely worth trialling, right?
Oh, yeah, but maybe Cork isn't the place to trial ones like that when we're already undergoing radical change. Possibly, I don't know. But the other aspect of that is that there was generous qualification as well. 4 out of the 6 teams qualified. Now, out of a group stage really with 6, you should only have 3 coming out. But the 4th team allowed that wriggle room for a club that missed their county players. But I think, again, here I am defending C again when I'm just trying to put across the aspects of all proposals. But I think it's important to realise the emotional attachment of a club to a county player that they reared since he was 6 years of age, that they saw grow, that they saw him playing in Cork Park, getting an All-Star. To cut that connection then for any kind of championship game just seemed to be a line that the clubs in Cork didn't want to cross. All we were doing was putting it out there for discussion. Who knows what the future will hold. And maybe it also gives a mandate to look at inter-county formats. Maybe now we're briefed by our clubs to say they do want summer games, because even the people who are totally opposed to our proposal, C, did express a desire for summer championship action with their county players. Or maybe that's a utopia that we'll never get back, who knows. But let's keep the discussion going. And let's put the club player who is 99% in Cork. Remember that 60, 2 match day panels at 26 was the number of players you were taking out. That's 52 players. We have over 400 teams, adult teams in Cork. That's over 6,000 players. You're less than 1%. So let's consider the 99% for a while. I suppose we're delighted that we put them at the top of the agenda.
Kevin, Pat Gilroy had an idea a couple of years ago that came out when he was running for the Director General's role at the GAA, where the club players would essentially license the county players to the county. Do you ever see a scenario where, you talk about the matchday panel, where anybody who isn't on that matchday panel could have played those championship games, and that actually maybe perhaps even in the middle of the inter-county season you could have a championship match on a down week for the senior inter-county team?
Yeah, absolutely, and we'd love that in Cork, and when I support all those values. The issue we have with the down weeks is having to play 2 codes, and as I said, the volume of games. We almost need 4 weekends to play around the championship in Cork, which, sounds a bit extreme, but it generally ends up that way. We've hurlers and footballers playing with different clubs as well. So I would love that. I was fascinated by those proposals. I just think we need to look at things from a new perspective at times. It's very difficult. We're all constrained. So I think all parties, though there was some fairly angry debate at times, all parties kind of know where we want to go, where we want the games to. We want the best of both worlds. In regard to the licensing, that is my view on it. I rail against the idea of county teams releasing players to clubs. It's bizarre. So, but on this side, we felt that option C was a viable one, to just release the pressure valve in the middle of summer, let a few games go ahead, keep the players at home from their J1s, keep them playing GA, keep the club active. We thought it was possibly a sacrifice worth making. The clubs decided it was not.
Well, look, fair enough in getting the radical elements of the change that you did get through last night, and also well done on starting a debate, Kevin. It's been a brilliant start to your new tenure. Best of luck with it, and thanks very much for making the time to talk to us this morning.
Thanks, George. Thanks very much.
It's Kevin Donovan there, the Cork County Board Secretary/CEO, and I think Cork are in good hands.
Yeah, it seems that way. The big issue here is that April is just too short, isn't it? It's just not going to work, that the inter-county season needs to be moved into one bulk, and that would solve a lot of problems. It would give county boards like Cork the autonomy to actually have a bit of wriggle room to actually do this sort of thing, because obviously you've got January to March at the moment, and then you've got May to August. In a county like Cork, they'd be expecting to fill all those months. As he said, 4 weeks to play one round of championship, that's your month of April gone, and in a lot of cases you're not going to get the full amount of April because they're playing on March the 12th, and you
can't ask players to play a football match on the Saturday and a hurling match on the Sunday, can you?
Well, no, that's the point, isn't it, behind the 4 weeks idea, that you kind of spread them out a small bit.
Yeah, it's tough. It's definitely difficult when it comes to talking about fixtures. That's the level of nitty-gritty and nuance you're dealing with.